Okay. Good morning. Welcome and thank you for joining the Liquor and Cannabis Board today for our public hearing on expanded alcohol service areas, implementing second substitute House Bill 1515. My name is Kevin Walder, Policy and Rules Manager, representing the agency as the hearing officer today. I am accompanied by Daniel Jacobs, Rules Coordinator, who will be providing detailed information on this rule proposal, and Tierney Hamilton Steele, Policy and Rules Administrative Assistant, who will be assisting with the hearing. Board members and other LCB staff may be in attendance as well, but will not be engaging in any discussion today. Please refer to the board meeting calendar if you are interested in providing general comments to the board. For the record, this hearing is being held on Thursday, December 11th, 2025, in a hybrid format, beginning at 10:03 a.m. pursuant to the Administrative Procedures Act, Chapter 3405 RCW. Today's hearing is being recorded, and the recording will be saved with our rulemaking file. The recording, including all public testimony, the sign-in sheet, and any documents you provide are subject to public disclosure and will be provided to anyone upon request. The Teams chat feature is disabled during the public hearing. If you have questions or encounter problems during the public hearing, please email us at rules@lcb.wa.gov. We will be checking this email during the hearing. Notice of today's hearing was published in the Washington State Register 25-22-104 on November 5th, 2025. Posted on the LCB's website and sent to LCB Rules Gov Delivery subscribers and other interested parties. Per the notification, all written comments must be received by the end of the day today to be considered for this rulemaking. Please email written comments to rules@lcb.wa.gov. Thank you to all who registered online to provide oral testimony. If you are here in person to provide testimony, please make sure you have filled out the sign-in sheet located by the door. This information will be used to call forward individuals who have indicated they want to provide testimony and is later used to ensure participants are notified of the outcome of this rulemaking. This hearing is being held to consider testimony presented on proposed rules necessary to implement second substitute House Bill 1515, which was passed into law by the legislature on April 22nd, 2025, signed by the governor on May 19th, 2025, and became effective on July 27th, 2025. Any comments received today, as well as written comments received, will be considered prior to requesting board approval to adopt the rule proposal. The tentative adoption date for these rules, provided that no further changes are deemed necessary in response to public comments, is January 7th, 2026, and the tentative effective date is February 6th, 2026. Daniel Jacobs will now provide details of this rule proposal before we begin the public testimony.
Thank you. This rulemaking is to implement second substitute House Bill 1515. There are 6 new rules being created and 7 rules being amended. Overall, our themes for incorporating this rule language identify the following themes. We're incorporating statutory direction into rule language. We're allowing existing rules and framework to guide to the extent possible. The joint operating plan rule adds specific elements and adds 3 requirements not specifically identified in statute. We address sharing the service area with non-licensees. And we have a fee determination discussion. All of this is specifically identified in the CR 102 filing. And that filing is Washington State Register at 25-22-104. Additionally, there's slight changes to some of the fees to reflect statutory changes in the other legislation that was passed. the rule language is meant to reflect statutory directives to the extent possible. And the three authorizations are described as follows. The expanded outdoor alcohol service authorization allows licensees within a local jurisdiction to share an expanded outdoor alcohol service area with other licensees. It identifies barrier requirements. It identifies masked service attendance requirements, and it identifies how the local jurisdiction needs to identify and notify the LCB. The civic campus authorization allows a city with above a certain population threshold to operate this authorization on a publicly owned civic campus. There's a cap on that there may be no more than 25 events per year. 7 of these 25 events may be multi-day events, and the multi-day events cannot be more than 14 days long. Certain elements need to be submitted by the city, and a joint operating plan needs to be submitted and approved. The fan zone authorization only applies during June and July of 2026 and contains much of the same requirements as the civic campus authorization. There's also rule language on a public engagement review that's required by statute. And there's a separate rule that we've created to address licensees sharing alcohol service area with non-licensees. This is a practice that the LCB is not historically allowed in other contexts, but because it is allowed by statute, we are creating a rule. Thank you, and I'll hand it back to Kevin.
Okay. The LCB evaluated the potential economic impact of the proposed rules on small business. It was determined that a small business economic impact statement was not required because the amended rule is not anticipated to result in more than minor cost on businesses as defined in RCW 1985-020 subsection 2. Additionally, cost-benefit analysis requirements under RCW 3405-328 do not apply to rules proposed by the LCB. Accordingly, unless voluntarily applied or made applicable by the Joint Administrative Rules Review Committee under RCW 3405-328 5A2, LCB rule packages do not include a cost-benefit analysis. At this time, we will take public testimony. Those who have signed in to testify in person and are present will be called on first, and then we will move on to those who have registered to testify virtually today in the order received. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. When called, please identify yourself and identify any applicable affiliations for the record. Please limit your comments to the topic of today's rulemaking. Note, today's hearing is not the appropriate forum for general comments unrelated to the specific rulemaking proposal under consideration. Deliberate refusal to stay on topic will result in dismissal of your testimony, and you may be asked to leave. For people testifying virtually, we'll unmute you so that you can speak. We'll look for names of people who registered to provide comments today, and it may take just a few moments to find you on Teams. Because of the nature of the public hearing, LCB staff will not be able to answer any questions during the hearing itself. If you'd like to provide additional comments or have questions about this or other rulemaking projects, please email the rules team at rules@lcb.wa.gov. At this time, we will now take public testimony on the proposed expanded alcohol service areas rulemaking implementing second substitute House Bill 1515. I do not see anyone here physically present today who would like to testify. So we'll move right into the virtual testimony.
At this point, there's one person signed up to testify virtually, so I will unmute them. Scott Waller, go ahead.
Did we
You
have
should be able to unmute yourself.
anyone who wanted to provide virtual testimony today?
Oh, Scott's unmuted.
My
There we go.
apologies. I'm sorry about that. Okay, start
Oh,
again.
sorry about that. Okay. I apologize. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. My name is Scott Waller, and I'm a board member with the Washington State Association for Substance Misuse and Violence Prevention, or WASAP. My organization represents more than 200 community coalitions and organizations involved in providing prevention services across the state, and the thousands of individuals who volunteer their time in support of those coalitions and organizations to make their communities healthier and safer places to live, work, and play. WASAP has specific concerns and recommendations regarding these draft rules. Recommendation 1, keep the existing regulation that requires a 42-inch barrier and allow cities to apply for a variance on a case-by-case basis. We see no reason for abandoning this rule, but could see a reason why something less than a 42-inch barrier could be needed on a case-by-case basis. The primary arguments supporting what we have called invisible lines of demarcation have focused on cost and ease of access. We think those arguments do not hold water, as a 1,000-foot, 3-inch wide roll of yellow plastic caution tape can be purchased online for less than $10 and it will arrive at your address the next morning. $10 is not a big deal. Meanwhile, each of the 6-inch reflective turtle devices will cost a minimum of $10 each, and the Seattle Center will need hundreds of those. Cost? I don't think so. Ease of access is also easily fixed by having multiple breaks in the barrier to allow entrance and exit. We just think people should be able to make a clear choice about entering a sip and stroll libation zone rather than arriving in one by accident. Recommendation 2, each city's plan should include a no alcohol service area that provides access to food, non-alcoholic drinks, and entertainment options like what's offered in the alcohol service area. The purpose of sip and stroll alcohol service or libation zones is to allow local breweries, distilleries, wineries, and alcohol licensees to increase their sales. Proponents would not seek reduced regulations if they were happy with the current situation. Many people will be excluded from participating in these community events due to alcohol service standards being relaxed. Individuals in recovery may avoid the events due to triggers from witnessing heavy drinking. Families wanting to protect their children from such exposure may also feel left out unless there's a designated no alcohol zone. Additionally, those from cultures or religions to prohibit alcohol consumption could be excluded. Recommendation 3, each city's plan should include a no alcohol service area that should include a plan B for their plan for enforcement and sanitation and that sort of thing. We think that we are in a very, very tight budget situation, and submitting a plan that's approved in March could, for an event that's going to happen in August, by the time that August event comes around, those city budgets could be dramatically different, particularly in law enforcement, due to everything from reduced in force due to budget cuts, retirement, injuries, or illness, voluntary or involuntary departures from the police force, and vacations. Same with sanitation services. There needs to be a contingency plan put in this about how they're going to reduce the size of the event if they have to reduce the size of the law enforcement force. Recommendation 4, each libation zone plan should describe a consistent system that will be used to regulate the number of drinks an individual can consume in these areas. The problem is that there's no standard way to track how much alcohol each person consumed. So if vendors are spread out, someone could easily visit multiple vendors and have several drinks and actually be served to over consumption, and no one would be able really to step into that because they didn't witness the consumption themselves. So we think that should be addressed. And finally, recommendation 5, we think that the LCB's research division should be tasked with the responsibility for developing and implementing a study of the effects of libation zones on public safety. Problem here is that there's no standard way to track how much alcohol each person consumes. If vendors are spread out, someone could easily visit multiple vendors. And there was no funding set aside to actually study the impact of this pretty large policy change. And the assumption is that in 2027, the legislature is going to consider whether to make these rules permanent. And without some type of a study in place, talking about what the impacts actually were, they're going to be making largely uninformed choices, or at least choices based on testimony from people who actually stood to gain from the events themselves. So in conclusion, LCB's vision statement reads, promote public safety, public health, and trust through the administration, education, and enforcement of liquor, cannabis, tobacco, and vapor laws. We offer these recommendations and have submitted them in written form to the LCB in the spirit of helping the agency reach its vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, do we have others who would like to testify virtually today?
That was everyone that signed up before the meeting, and there have been no one to sign in since the meeting started.
Okay. If there is no one else who would like to testify on the proposed rules, we'll move forward. The deadline for sending in written comments is 11:59 p.m. today, Thursday, December 11th, 2025. I want to thank all who have testified. Scott, thank you. We'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 10:19 a.m. Thank you, everyone.